Hello, I'm Zaccura and welcome back to my channel and to a very, very late Inktober sketchbook walkthrough. Beepity boop boop boop. Beepity boop boop bop. So if you guys caught my last video, you saw me creating this little itty bitty 6 inches by 4.5 inch wire-bound notebook. This is what I used for Inktober 2019, and even though I like how this notebook turned out, I ended up kind of regretting it, and I will explain it as we get into it. So let's get into it. Man, this is why I need to script my videos. I don't know how to talk. Oh yeah, so I actually made like a little pocket in the back of my cover of my notebook, and then I printed out the prompt list for Inktober 2019. This is the official prompt list by Jake Parker. I apparently folded over like the important information. There it is! So yeah, those are all the things that, yeah, okay, yeah. Yay, prompts. Okay, moving on to day 1. So if you guys followed my Inktober journey this year over on my social media, then you know that for the first like 2 weeks, I actually did a comic book for Inktober, and I mentioned that I was not expecting to do that originally, and it was all thanks to this darn day 1 right here. So the prompt for day 1 was ring, and wait, is my camera blurry? Yes, it is. There we go. So the prompt for day 1 was ring, and I'm an edgelord, and thus I like to try to rack my brain a little and come up with different meanings behind prompt words rather than going with like the obvious choice. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of ring is, of course, a ring that you wear around your finger. But then after thinking, I also figured, you know what, there's also like the ring of a sound, like the ring of a phone or a ring of a bell. And I don't know why my voice is all scratchy. What's wrong? What is going on with my voice here? Okay, so I thought, let me try to make an illustration that would show a bell ringing, and there's a car going by. Man, this video is just a disaster. So I figured, let me try to make a illustration that would kind of illustrate a bell ringing, but I didn't really know how to capture that all in one illustration because, I mean, obviously you can't hear it. So in my head, I really figured, you know what, I need 2 illustrations. I need one showing the bell ringing and then another of like people listening to the bell. And so then I figured, heck, let's just do it in like comic page format. That would be kind of cool. And then after doing this, after taking the photo and stuff, I figured, you know what, let's actually make it like a real comic page and add some word bubbles and dialogue and stuff. And I'll have it posted on the screen, like over here, of what the finished page looks like. I'm not gonna like read it to you guys because that would make this video too long, and this video is probably gonna be super long anyway. But if you guys want to read the pages, then you can go and check out my Instagram page because they're all there, and I tried to make them really easy to read, so yeah. Anyway, moving on with my explanation story here. So after I did day 1, I just got like really inspired by what I wrote and what I drew and this character that I decided to continue it into day 2. The prompt for day 2 was mindless, and it continues directly from day 1. Again, I'll show the finished page on the screen over here. One of the reasons why I made this notebook so small was to prevent myself from spending a lot of time on Inktober every single day, because I'm working really hard on getting my book year finished and out by the end of this year. So I knew that I would not be able to spend a lot of time on Inktober, and that's why I made this book so small, so that I would, you know, draw less. But that ended up being super regretful when I ended up getting caught into this Inktober comic idea, because making comics on tiny pages is really really difficult. Don't ever do this to yourself. But to talk a little bit about day 2, this actually ended up being one of my favorite pages and honestly one of my favorite pieces of Inktober. I don't know why, but it seems to be like a trend that every single year for Inktober, the second piece that I make usually ends up being one of my favorite. And that was day 2. Moving on to day 3. So by this point, the story started to take over a little bit and I really need to get a lot of information across in just one page. That's why this one's kind of messy because there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 panels, and again it's so hard to stuff this much information into such a tiny page. But regardless, the prompt for day 3 was bait. And because we had this main character from the beginning sweeping like the sidewalk in front of something, and so I figured why not make it a bait and tackle shop, or Blue's Bait and Tackle. Anyway, that was day 3. Moving on to day 4. The prompt for day 4 was freeze, and this is the first page that the prompt is not obvious at all. Actually, it's not even obvious. It's not even there. Just from the illustrations, you have to read the dialogue of the page in order to know where the prompt comes in. Kind of cop-out-ish, but really at this point, I was letting the story take over, and I just really wanted to get the story out. But the prompt is still there. Basically, Blue here is telling our main character, like, hey, get this bag of fish in the freezer before it starts stinking up the place. By the way, I guess I should mention the tools that I used for Inktober. So for all of the panel boxes, I used my Tombow brush pens, either the Tombow, oh gosh, I can never pronounce this, the Tombow Fudensky, I don't know how to pronounce Japanese. Anyway, these Tombow brush pens, I love Tombow brush pens. They are so just delicious. And then for all of the lining on the inside, I used a dip pen. And I think I also used some micron fine liners here and there to get like super fine details and maybe some of the cross hatching and stuff. And then the ink I used for the dip pen is Speedball Super Black. Great stuff. That's also what I use to do all of the ink wash. So as you can see, there's like gray and various shades of gray inside. I just take a brush and I water down some of this ink and then I just paint with it. So the prompt for day 5 was build, and because the previous pages all were pretty packed with dialogue and story information, this one I ended up just giving the story kind of a break. Because there's actually no dialogue on this whole page, and I tried to just open it up and give a break to the reader. So with this one, the main character walks out of the building and puts the fish in the freezer, and then they look up and they see this half-built building and this construction people working on it. So with this one, I think I remembered that I actually did not use my dip pen at all for this, and I also don't think I used any loose ink for this. I think I did it completely just with the Tombow brush pens and some micron fine liners because I was like on the road. I think I was like traveling somewhere. It's kind of been a while. Anyway, I wasn't able to draw this at my desk, so I was not able to use loose ink. And then to get all of the gray shading, I used these... things are falling. I used these Faber-Castell India ink shades of gray brush pens, which they worked out pretty well, and I used them more later on as well. But still, I think that I kind of ruined it because of those pens. I didn't really know how to use them. I think especially in this last page here, all of the contrast kind of got lost, and I had to try to save myself with the gel pen and stuff, so... I'm way more used to using just real ink wash from a bottle, but it still came out alright. You can still get what's going on, and that's the important part when it comes to comics. Moving on to... I can't move the page now. Okay. Day 6, Husky. So this is probably also one of my favorite pages in the comic. I just think the whole composition came out really well, the shading came out really well, the line work came out really well. And you can kind of tell what's going on even without having to read any of the dialogue. But here we introduce this new character named Husk. So his name is not Husky, but he is husky in his size and strength. But his name is Husk, and his nickname is Husky. That's what all the other construction guys call him, because he is just a behemoth, and he doesn't know his own strength. As you can see here, he is nailing down nails with a sledgehammer, because it's if you can handle it, you know, it makes the nails go in a lot quicker, I guess. And moving on. This one, okay, so this page is either day 6.2 or 7.1. I don't remember which one it was. But basically, at this point in the story, I came to realize that it was just not possible to have only one page per prompt, because I could really only fit up to maybe 4 panels per tiny little page here, and it's not easy to fit that much information and make the story really go on properly in just one page per prompt. So I needed to do more pages, basically. I need to do more work. So this one doesn't actually have any prompt in it. It's just a continuation because I needed to show him jumping off of a 2-story building. I like the pose our main character has over here. They're like, holy flappin' flux! Coming up with like clean curses are really fun to do. So then moving on to, so this is day 7, Enchanted. Now we kind of get back into some heavy dialogue. That's why there's, you know, 4 panels here. I also kept it all white up here because there's a lot of dialogue going on, as you can see over here. But even alone, I kind of really like, actually, just how simple this panel is on its own. Like I would print this out and like put it on my wall if it was bigger and that was actually possible, because I can't really print. This is like the size of my finger. Yeah, there's something about simplicity that's just really, really nice. So, and I think it's just kind of a sweet scene where you can see him, this big guy, but he's actually really nice. And yeah, that was Enchanted. Then moving on to day 8.1. I remember day 8 ended up being a 4-part thing. There's 4 pages for day 8. The prompt is frail, which the prompt actually shows itself literally in the first panel. This one was pretty much a cop-out because I like literally just chose like the most cliche stereotype like thing for the word frail, which is a frail old lady. This is the same guy that walked into the shop here, suspicious looking fellow, and our main character sees him again, and he's like, hey, you weird guy. And then we reveal that he is actually just like a friendly nerd looking guy named Carl. And then this is day 8.2. This one is like so bare. Because again, there was a lot of dialogue, but also honestly because I needed to do 4 pages. As you can see, all of these pages for day 8 are really like rushed and not the best art-wise. Then this is 8.3. Again, quite rushed. Not a lot going on. I left a lot of white space, and even when I added the background here, like, what is this background? This was just a kind of an important confrontation scene where our main character confronts this guy who is a member of Muted, which in this world is kind of like a cult. Basically, the whole town believes in this bell that's way off in the distance, and they have almost like a religious belief in it. And then the Muted Society is basically a cult that doesn't believe in the bell. You know, we're against the bell, so. And they're very mysterious. Not a lot has been revealed, so there you go. And finally, this is 8.2. I know. I can't count. This is 8.4, people, which is the final one for day 8. And big reveal in the last panel. So we finally move on to day 9, which, I mean, at this point, I'm pretty sure this is like already like day 14, drawing-wise, meaning I've done like 14 drawings already. like 14 days worth of drawings, but prompt-wise, it's still only the 9th prompt, which is swing. It was nice to spend a little bit more time on this one and bring that detail back in. I tried this thing where this is supposed to be like memory, like a flashback, but it kind of fades into reality. Like this is what's going on right now, and this is kind of like what's going on in the past, and maybe our main character is recalling this experience or something. I try to achieve this by like fading this panel out into this and having these things kind of cut into it. I don't really know. I don't know if it works. This is something that I think I could do really easily digitally, but it's really hard to do traditionally because I don't know how to like fade things out like that. And yeah, so that was 9.1 swing, and then we move on to 9.2. This one was super rushed. Again, I used those Faber-Castell shades of gray markers, and you can see it's really just like scribbled all in there. And that ended up being the last page that I did during Inktober. So I came to realize that making comics takes up a long time. I ended up spending so much time every day working on this comic that I was completely neglecting my previous commitments for my book year. So at this point I said, you know what, I can't keep doing this. But I really liked where the story was going, and we really hardly scratched the surface of the world and the storyline. So I decided not to just quit it and put it away forever, but instead to put on hiatus until January 2020, where I will pick it back up where it left off and continue making pages and hopefully finish that story. And I'm still going to be following this prompt list to do it, so I'm really excited for that. But I was also not going to completely quit Inktober, so instead I switched over to my original plan for Inktober, which was to just do a single random illustration every day. That would also, of course, follow the prompt list. So that's kind of, I guess, the second part of this video. So the next prompt was actually, we skip ahead quite a few prompts and we head over to day 16 wild, because at this point it was already 16 days in. So I decided to just continue it over at day 16, which means I actually technically skipped a lot of prompts. But the most important thing is that I did 31 drawings. I filled 31 of these pages. So this ended up being now day 16. The prompt for day 16 was wild, and this color is horrible. I decided let's just draw a squirrel, you know, and this one was really fast. I did this really fast, and so it's really sketchy and not very detailed. And then I don't know why, but I was like, let me try just add some quick color on top of this squirrel. And it just came out really bad. And then to save myself, what I did is I ended up taking a photo of it and then digitally adding color on top of it, as you can see here. So this way it kind of covers up my bad mistake here of adding this horrible color on top of the squirrel. Moving on to day 17, ornament. The moment I thought of this prompt, for some reason I just had this idea of this girl with this big hair and would just have all these different things inside her hair. So with this one, because I really loved how the ink work came out, I didn't dare to try to mess it up with traditional color again. Instead, I decided to scan it properly. Instead of just taking a photo, I actually scanned it into my computer and then removed the white, so I just had the lines, and then treated it like a digital drawing in a way, and just added the color underneath the lines. This ended up being one of my favorite pieces I did for the entirety of Inktober. And funny enough, it actually ended up being, I think, the most popular Inktober piece I did this year over on like Instagram and just those social media in general. This one actually also got featured on Newgrounds. It was front paged on Newgrounds, which was really unexpected and really nice. Oh, by the way, I actually added shading digitally as well. Instead of just the flat colors, I actually spent more time and I put shading, but then after I was finished, I realized that I liked the flat colors alone better than the shaded in thing, so I ended up just deleting the shading and just left the flat colors. So anyway, moving on. Today 18, Misfit. I knew I had to bring back my boy Zig from last year. If you guys followed my Inktober journey last year, you know that I made a whole storybook last year around this character, Zig. And he is a misfit in every regard, so I thought he was just perfect for this prompt. And I figured why not draw it completely the same way that I did that whole book last year, you know, with this kind of inky, blotchy ink wash in the background and using the Winsor & Newton inks to like tint things. I use a lot of this nut brown to like make his pants and his hat and the wood and stuff brown. Also to get like the blue of the glow glob, which was one of the animals that showed up in the book. So yeah, I haven't drawn this character or this style like for a long time, pretty much since last year, and yet it's still so easy for me to draw this way, because this Zig is still one of like the easiest characters for me to draw because I've just drawn him so many times. So the prompt for day 19 was sling. And because I liked so much of how day 17, the ornament one, came out, I decided to do the exact same thing, which was to do the line work traditionally, scan it into my computer, and then add the color digitally and add flat colors digitally. I feel like almost everybody who did this prompt did some form of a slingshot, and honestly that was like the only thing that was in my head as well when I read this prompt. I was like, slingshot, that's the only thing I can think of. I couldn't really think of anything else other than a slingshot, but I was like, no, I cannot be. Why? Because I'm an edgelord, so I have to do something different, obviously. So the only other thing I could think of was like a medical sling, something that you wear when you have like a broken arm. So, but then again, so I was also not the only one to think of this. I feel like that's, so 80% of the people did slingshot, and then the other 20 did arm slings. So I was just part of the little edgelord group that was like, oh, we're not gonna go for slingshots, we're gonna go for medical slings. It was a hard prompt. There's really not many things that you can think of when you think of sling, so yeah, moving on to day 20, tread. I immediately thought of treading water, and I think that was definitely because on this day I actually happened to be working on finishing up the story of March and doing all of the sketch illustrations for it. And if you guys followed my monthly character series last year, you may remember possibly that the story of March is set at a lake. There's a lot of swimming involved, possibly drowning involved, and there's like a scene that's in the past, kind of a flashback moment where this specific thing happens. Not gonna exactly spoil everything that's going on because I want you guys to read my book, please. But so I decided let me actually illustrate that exact scene because it's very prominent in the book. So there's this young boy here, and he's treading water in the middle of a lake. It's always really scary to work with such dark ink wash, but it ends up, you know, yielding some really neat results if you do it right. And I think I managed to do it pretty well, so I was proud of myself. And it also actually happened to be one that was really popular online as well. So yeah, I mean, Inktober this year was really interesting in that regard, where all the ones that I personally really liked actually ended up being the most popular as well. So I guess the stars just aligned in that way. It usually doesn't work like that. Usually the ones that I like most don't necessarily get the most likes. This one also got featured on Newgrounds, which is really surprising. Getting featured on Newgrounds is not something that happens like all the time. I think before Inktober, I think I've gotten front page on Newgrounds maybe twice before, and like ever, and that was within like the last few years. And this year for Inktober, within 1 month, I actually ended up having 3 pieces featured on Newgrounds. So that was like really, I was like so humbled. Anyway, moving on to day 21, treasure. So again, I wanted to fight against the first instinct of what you think of when you think of treasure, gold and jewelry and whatever. And I was like, babies. So yeah, that was the prompt for treasure. I just have this mom hugging her little itty bitty wormy baby. This one, again, as you can probably see right over there, I took a picture of this one and add color on top, but I didn't scan this one. I did this one the same way that I did the squirrel one, which was I literally just took a picture and then put the color on top of it. Then we have day 22, Ghost. This one I tried to kind of like, I guess, tell a story within like just a drawing and try to like let it speak for itself. It is inspired by something, but I'm not gonna like mention what that is because I think after doing this drawing, there are a lot of interpretations, I guess, of you could come up with what's going on here, and I think it's better left just with the illustration, let it speak for itself. So, but in literal terms, we have this girl sitting on this swing here, and then we have this like ghost boy sitting on the swing next to her, and he has like a glowing heart on the inside of him. And yeah, I think it came out pretty well. Moving on to day 23, Ancient. So I really could not think of anything for this prompt, and I think the problem really was that there was just too many things you can do. Like, there are a lot of ancient things and I just couldn't pick one, I guess. But while I was searching, I came across this really interesting article about the Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci. And in that article, they posted kind of a quote that by Da Vinci in there that I just thought was really interesting, and the way it ties into the Vitruvian Man is really fascinating. Maybe I can pull it up like right now. And it said, "By the ancients, man has been called the world in miniature, and certainly this name is well bestowed, because inasmuch as man is composed of earth, water, air, and fire, his body resembles that of the earth." So I just thought that was really, really interesting, and also learning a couple of little facts about the Vitruvian Man was really fascinating. So I thought, you know what, let's just draw the Vitruvian Man. Though this was not like a proper study of the piece at all. I hope to one day actually do like a proper master study of the Vitruvian Man, because it's just like really mesmerizing to look at, and just the proportions and everything, because they're perfect. But in this case, I did a slightly more cartoony version, I guess, just kind of eyeballing everything and just keeping in mind some of the basic things about the Vitruvian Man, which is like the middle fingers up here, the tips of the middle fingers align with the top of his head and whatnot, and making sure that all of his limbs still like connect with the torso, so that in a way the guy could be in 16 different poses. But everything's like really wonky. The circle is not even like a circle. The square is not a square, because I didn't actually measure the length of these lines. So yeah, anyway. And I also made it YouTube safe. The prompt for day 24 was dizzy, and immediately I had this idea of, let me try to like draw what it feels like to be dizzy, rather than just drawing like a dizzy person, which is still basically what I drew. I figured by like drawing this guy in all these just disoriented positions would kind of have that feeling of like that's what it feels like to be dizzy. And I think I definitely took inspiration from the Vitruvian Man of the previous day by having this concept of having his limbs and his heads all connect to this center torso here, and you're not really sure which arm goes to which pose, which head goes to which arm, and whatnot. I think it was definitely a better idea in my head than how I executed it. It was really hard to keep track of everything because I was drawing over everything, like all of his necks and ears and whatnot. And that was day 24. Then we move on to day 25, Tasty. This was another one of those prompts like Ancient, where you could literally do like so many different things. I mean, any food, anything you could think of, you can do for the prompt Tasty, and because of that, I just couldn't come up with anything. I need more specific prompts, Jake Parker. It was literally 1 a.m. in the morning when I drew this. I was like in bed, about to go to bed, and I was like, okay, let me think of tasty things. And it was really hard for me to think of because also like I am not a picky eater. I like everything. I eat everything. Anyway, I was thinking, okay, well, what about sushi? I like sushi. It's one of my favorite foods. So I just drew this little piece of sushi, and I was like, well, that's boring. And what about the rest of the page? And I was like, okay, whatever. And I drew a face on the sushi, and then I drew chopsticks. And I was like, wait, but the sushi kind of looks sinister, but he's about to get eaten. And I was like, let's make it a comic by putting text. I mean, literally, it was just, there is no inspiration. It means nothing and everything at the same time. This was another drawing that I took a picture of and added the color on top digitally. And yeah, even though I like aesthetically how it looks, I have no clue what the heck is going on. You know, you guys can tell me, come up with a story and write it in the comments, like caption this, what is going on in this scene here. Then we have day 26, dark. I do not really like how this one came out at all, probably my least favorite of the entire month. But I had this idea of this cave, and this guy would be walking in this cave, and but only at second glance do you realize, like, wait a minute, this cave looks suspiciously like a mouth, and there's some sharp teeth and eyes, and wait a minute. It was a really good concept in theory, but I just kind of ruined it with the execution, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. You can't win them all on Inktober. That's the point. You gotta just finish and move on. But still not like a terrible drawing either, so it's okay. It's okay. Then we have day 27, coat. And this also is one of my favorites, and like I mentioned before, all of my favorites this year ended up also being the most popular, so for other people as well. So I did try to be edgy this day and tried to come up with something other than a physical wearing of a coat. I thought of maybe a coat of paint or a coat of fur or something, but I mean, really, I love clothes. I love drawing clothes, so I decided, you know what, let's just not be edgy this time and actually draw a coat. I think I definitely brought out my inner Dr. Seuss here. Just with the pose and, you know, just the whole concept, really. And then there's just this random lamp with the loopy thing. That's very Dr. Seuss, with like the skinny loopy thing. This one, again, I took a picture of and then added color on top digitally. The colors were really simple, and I just think it came out really nice. I wish there was a cool story behind why she's holding a lamp, but it was honestly just to like please my OCD eyes. But basically, I drew the girl with the coat, and I noticed that everything was really pulling in this direction. A lot of the stuff was over here because of the coat, and it was super empty up here and over here, and I was like, I just need to put something over there so that it's balanced and good and proper, and it's like a good illustration, because, I mean, I have a problem, clearly. But anyway, no, I just really like seeing balance in paintings, so since there was like a pointy thing going in this direction, I was like, let's put a pointy thing going in that direction, and I was like, well, what the heck do I put over there? And I just kind of drew this thing, and it ended up being a lamp, so yeah, creativity 101, you just come up with it. And this was the third drawing that got front page over on Newgrounds. I mean, thanks so much to Newgrounds for doing that. Really humbling to have had 3 of my Inktober pieces front paged over there, so yeah. I don't know why that sounded almost like a sponsored bit there, but not sponsored. Moving on. Day 28, the prompt for day 28 was ride. I decided to draw a witch riding a broom. You know, I have a confession. I must be honest. I really like the witchy aesthetic. I think it's very prominent in the artist community. I mean, there's like the witch sona week thing. People draw their witch sonas, and people draw witches. Like, witches are just like a thing. And I love seeing art depicting like these cute witches with these hats and stuff. I just think it's so adorable. But I've never really drawn anything for the witchy aesthetic myself, so I thought, you know, why not this time? I also tried this thing where I made the sky completely black. That was really scary. It's always so scary for me to work with just pure black in large amounts. The clouds ended up coming out like really weird, because I don't know jack about drawing clouds, so but I guess they have their own style to them and they're kind of cool in that regard. And the whole thing pleases, again, my OCD eye because it has this S shape. The S shape is really pleasing to look at. You know, you'll see it in a lot of illustrations. It's just really pleasing to the human eye for some reason. And then moving on to day 29, injured. So since the rest of my Inktober, you know, all of the Inktober pieces prior were pretty much all done in my cartoony style, maybe, and you know, my anime-ish style. I didn't really do anything very realistic. So for day 29, I was like, you know, let's draw like a semi-realistic portrait of an injured person. So I just kind of drew this head and like slapped on a band-aid and a cut on their forehead. And then I was like, you know, let's keep it edgy, you know what I mean? I gave them a lot of piercings, and there's like the toothpick in their mouth, and then I gave them like this Skrillex half-buzzed haircut. I'm actually not even sure if this is a guy or a girl. I actually tend to do that a lot when I draw heads. I often just, because I just really like the structure of a human head and a human face so much that a lot of time I will just start doodling, you know, like the nose and the chin and the cheeks, and I'll just kind of connect everything together without any like idea of like, is it a she, is it a he, is it a they, like what is it? So I'm not really sure if this is a guy or girl, but it's an edgy person, that's for sure. Also, this one kind of really inspired me to study more the planes of the face. I really liked how this sketch came out, but then when I lined it and then put this shading in it, I think it kind of diminished it. I don't want to say like it completely ruined it because it still looks alright, but I just think it just made it look a little bit more, I guess, amateurish. And I came to really realize that like my understanding of the human face is still really, really limited. I only know like the basics. When I get the time again to reboot my Study with Your Buddy Zaccy series, I'll probably be doing some portrait study stuffs. For this one, I did again take a picture and add some color, but I didn't actually add any color onto the face. I just added like a block of color in the back because once again, my OCD eyes was like, this head is really low on the page. It looks like something, it got cut off. So I need to put something back there to make it look like it was on purpose. So yeah, that was it. It was just to please my eyes. And then we move on to day 30, catch. Not really sure what to say about this one. It's just a cute drawing of this burb making a great escape from their cage, and then this little kid being like barely catching it before it plummets to the ground. I hardly draw animals, which is like such a darn shame because animals are so adorable, and especially birds. I love birds so much, and I like making them kind of derpy when I draw. Oh no, my camera just ran out of battery. Why does this always happen to me? Oh, I know why. Because I babble and I babble and I babble and I talk for such a long time that my camera gives up on life and dies. And then I have to go get another soul over here and recharge its other soul. And then we stick the new soul into the camera and it comes back to life, and now it has to suffer through more of my babbling. So as I was saying, I like when I do draw animals to kind of make them like cute and derpy. So this bird is like really derpy and chubby. I used to really want a parrot when I was younger, but I'm like kind of glad that I didn't get one when I was younger because I don't think I would have had the responsibility, like what the heck is that called? I wasn't responsible enough to take care of something like a parrot because they require a lot of attention, a lot of love because they're so intelligent. So yeah, I'm glad that I didn't get one, but it's always been like a childhood wish to have a parrot. So maybe one day I will be able to have the lifestyle and time to take care of one. Then this is actually not part of Inktober, but I guess I'll show it to you guys anyway. It was supposed to be day 31, but as I was kind of sketching it, like I came to realize that it started to look like something else. It started to look like this really cute couple here, kind of like chilling with each other. And I liked how like the head came out, so I didn't want to just erase it and start over. So instead I just finished the sketch as it is. Thankfully in this book I added 32 pages, so I was able to afford one page being like not part of Inktober. I do want to end up finishing this illustration one day, hopefully soon. Maybe I will line it and then scan it and do colors digitally again. I don't know. We'll see what I end up doing. Why is this? What is this? This thing on my table keeps moving. Moving on to the real day 31. The prompt for day 31 was ripe. And I decided not to fight with any impulses this time. And my first impulse was watermelon. For some reason, when I thought of the word ripe, I just couldn't stop thinking of watermelon, watermelon, watermelon. I don't even know why, because when you think of like ripe fruits, like usually you don't think of watermelon because you can't even tell if they're ripe from the outside. But whatever, I like watermelons. Who doesn't like watermelons? Anyway, so I drew this like mom with her little boy, and they're having a picnic outside, and they're chomping down on some juicy ripe watermelons. And once again, I took a picture and put the color on top. Though this time I kind of regret not scanning it properly and then actually like at a high resolution and then putting the color, because you know, when you just draw directly over a photo, there's not much you can do with the illustration afterwards because it's just like a low quality photo. So I spent a little bit more time on, since this was the last day, I spent a little bit more time both on the lining and with the color. I kind of like how the colors turned out. It looks almost like it was done with markers. Almost looks like it's done traditionally, even though it's still digitally, so yeah. And I just think it's pretty cute. I think it ended Inktober pretty well. So I remember I actually had to post this on November 1st because I wasn't able to finish it until like the end of October 31st, and then I was like, it was late and I didn't want to have to like go and post it, so I posted it the next day. And that concludes the entirety of my Inktober sketchbook. Those were all 31 drawings that I did. And with that, my successful Inktober streak continues. This is my, 16, 17, 18. This is my 4th year in a row completing Inktober. So on to number 5. Hey, it's voiceover Zaccy. Thank you so much for watching this very, very long and very, very late Inktober flip through video. If you enjoyed it in any way, please be sure to hit the thumbs up on your way out, and if you have a moment, please do drop a comment down below telling me what you think and which of the Inktober pieces shown here is your favorite. And if you participated in Inktober, let me know how it went. Apologies again for the recent trend of really infrequent video uploads. Year, as in my book, is almost finished. Last week I managed to finish drawing all of the sketch illustrations for the interior of the book, and now I'm working on formatting it. So I'm still on target for having the book come out before Christmas. But before then, I am going to try to get a few more items up on my shop, like near the end of this month of November. Going to try to get some prints and cards up, and maybe, just maybe, something else, which I won't mention yet in case my experiment totally doesn't work and it never happens. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know when I will be back for a new video, but once the bulk load of the work for the book is finished, I'll be able to have a bit more time to focus back on YouTube. So yeah, thank you all for being so patient. If you guys would like to follow me on social media, all the links to that are in the description box. Also, if you guys would like to be notified for things like when new items go up on my shop and when my book comes out and any other special Zaccura announcements, you can subscribe to my newsletter over on my website. The link to that as well as my shop is in the description box as well. And until next time, stay awesome, stay inspired, always. See ya!